Good morning, day 29, still here, still boring you all to death, and I thought we'd talk about neurodiversity, neuroplasticity and eugenics, and just say a few controversial things to get you thinking. So, does neurodiversity exist? Well, obviously, some people have a chromosome missing, and so they have slightly different development, but I would suggest to you they are still human and they still have exactly the same needs and their development should be properly supported. And some people, they seem to hit a block in their development and it's not obvious why. I suspect inner ear infection just glues the whole vestibular system up and they just don't seem to thrive beyond a certain age. And they also have needs and need support to get them going as far as they can go. For many, we just don't try to achieve good development. Children arrive at school and we've already decided they're going to do numeracy literacy. And this is our agenda, but we're not looking at their needs. We're not providing a supportive PE curriculum to support good development and to check it. We're doing no screening of sound and no sound therapy to support inner ear infection, even though 80% of under 3s get inner ear infection. There is no screening and routine support to bring people to good binocular vision. And given vision is our dominant sense, and we have certainly known that since World War II, when it was used a lot in intelligence, and we really screened for people with binocular vision because we knew they had particular skills. Now, we're not making very much effort to get people to a good state of development. And I don't think we really understand what is neurodiverse and is not going to change, what is a bit of a glitch in development because human development is complex and just needs a bit of a nudge. And we're not trying. So we say we don't believe in eugenics and we go, oh, Nazi Germany and things like that. But I would like to suggest to you that in reality, we do an awful lot of it. So there's the lack of support, the lack of effort to overcome barriers to the really fundamental barriers to learning. We have education systems that automatically have setting in them, so we're grading children, and we know full well that generally the bottom sets tend to get the weaker teachers, the less experienced, And we have selection. So we're saying, oh, this top school, this is a really top school, but all they've done is they've taken the very best students, the easiest to teach, and got the best results. Any idiot can do that. We have a curriculum designed on the grammar school system, not a curriculum designed to meet the needs of the children in front of the teachers. So I personally would scrap the whole of our primary curriculum and replace it with something much more age appropriate that actually supports their development. We start education at 4. So particularly in Britain, we're starting formal education at 4. Unless your parents are really proactive and can afford lots of support and other things, that is going to block your development because children are not ready to start formal education at 4, so they need other things to stimulate good development. Your rich parents are paying for the sports clubs, your rich parents are paying for the dance lessons, they're paying for the gym lessons. Your poorer students can't access that. So school, which is so pivotal, is completely inappropriate to their needs. I would also say that even private education is. But we're certainly not meeting the needs of the child, maximising their development. And all stakeholders should be doing that. We've got a very high level of school exclusions in Britain, and that is part of the game of terrifying people into just hunkering down, either conforming while they're in school and not making a fuss, or you are out of the system. And then there's a very high chance you will end up in prison, etc. So don't want to be anywhere near the school exclusion game. We don't have programs to support children to catch up developmentally. So premature children can often find themselves always at the bottom. It's depressing because there's not the recognition actually they're a year behind. Children who've experienced very severe infection have the same problem. Slow developers, Children who've had very disrupted early years, we expect them all to be keeping up at one pace. And about 20% of children in Britain leave school functionally illiterate in numerate. It's awful. And when there is a problem and families seek help, we have an extremely hostile education and healthcare system in Britain. It is so hostile. So instead of all the stakeholders proactively defining what is wrong with a child and then working as a team to resolve it at the lowest cost, what happens is families have to lobby and get their own independent assessments in order to fight their way through a very hostile system to get some funding, partial funding, whether, to fund something that will support their children. But often it's very patchy, it's not coherent, the documentation is written by bureaucrats, it's crazy, it doesn't match child development, and it's hugely expensive. It is not about sorting out problems. All of this creates a eugenics system where if you have problems, you're not going to develop. But if you're the golden person or you're well tutored and get around the system, you can go ahead. I know I can change people. I know that the business I run is a very small business. We're a very small social enterprise, very low levels of funding. If we can do it, everybody else can. There are some really useful writers you can have a look at. Norman Doidge's book on the brain's way of healing, talking about how humans can make tremendous differences to their brains just through non-invasive exercises. Barbara Arrowsmith gives her account of how she changed her own brain. She now runs a school in Canada and lectures on how people can change their brains. Douyon, Neuroplasticity, the brain's superpower. Things are coming out. When I began in 2005 and I was working with my own son, people told me to just accept him as he was. Fortunately, he was very bad-tempered as he was, so I wasn't going to be stuck there. Off we went, we sorted him out. This year he graduated with a top degree. If it's good enough for my son, it's good enough for everybody. Not everybody is as lucky. This is my neighbour. He lives in a private care home a few doors away from me. On bad nights, he is knocking on my door and knocking on my door for hours. He is so bored. There is no therapy. He is left with the lowest paid work as possible. The house is run for commercial profit. It is pretty chaotic. It doesn't really work with the street, and he is very bored. He doesn't get any proper therapy. He is still a toe walker, so he doesn't walk heel to toe. He's still, because he's a toe walker, his hips don't work properly. Because his hips don't work properly, spine doesn't work properly. Because his spine doesn't work properly, he reads with one eye, then the other eye. He can't bring the two eyes together because his frame needed sorting out. My fear is that now in his early 20s, it's too late. His skeleton has hardened and it will be painful to adjust it. He has a sound processing problem, which I am certain I could sort out. I have offered to do things for free, but I get nowhere with my evil counsel. And trust me, Croydon can be very evil. So he sits there, bored, year after year after year. No stimulation, nothing happening. We're not developing him. We're just leaving him in a dreadful state. It's painful to walk, but he's bored. He walks for miles at times. He can't communicate well, but actually I think that's just his inner ear needs sorting, and his eyes can't work together. So last year he was involved in a very bad car accident because he can't judge the speed of vehicles coming towards him. He just dashes across roads. If his eyes worked together, he'd be able to judge it. He's not an idiot. I've been for walks with him on a Sunday. We've walked for miles and talked. And he is quite funny, and he's got quite a wry sense of humour. But he's trapped. His body doesn't work for him, and he needs to have constructive activities and therapy and work. He is bored, but he will be dependent on the state for life, and he will die young. There are much better alternatives, many more meaningful lives, and organisations like Ruskin Mill, organisations like Larch, we really ought to be having a minimum standard that everybody lives to in terms of quality of life, and that everybody expects to spend a constructive life post-school, that nobody is sitting vegetating, that everybody is entitled to some kind of constructive activity. And if you're not this extreme, the reality is we're going to get you to a state where you can use your motor skills properly, you can use your binocular vision, you can use your sound processing, and everything is working as well as we can make it work. And certainly a place like Ruskin Mill have biomechanics departments. They are really working to support their students. So I think at the moment we basically run a eugenics system. We are supporting very few students, and there's that sense of deserving, undeserving. And we have got to have very much higher expectations for all our students. So thank you for listening, and I will see you tomorrow when I should do something slightly more fun. Goodbye.